That's basically going to be your fats, your carbs, and your proteins.
I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the group a little bit and share with the group a little bit about who you are. Give us a little backstory.
Oh man, I am a storyteller, so...
I'll cut you off if I have
to. I'm definitely that friend that you have to be like, okay, enough is enough. My name is Lauren Angelette Rohasic. I'm 39 years old. I am a mom of 3. My youngest is 12, my middle one is 14, and my oldest is gonna be 18. I have 2 boys and 1 girl. My daughter is the oldest. I've known Tina forever, since I was in high school, and she was like 10, I think, 9 or 10 years old. Best friends with her sister, Andrea. Andrea was a year younger than me in high school. I spent a lot of my time in high school in the Dearna household. It was a place I felt very safe, but also a place where like I wasn't getting away with any kind of bullshit either. Because it's not like I was coming over there to like have a free-for-all. Your mother was also not, like she wasn't messing around. So it was just a different kind of household, a different kind of parenting that I was not used to.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
Unless my dad was having a bad day.
Ran right up them stairs the second we came up in the house, or to the basement, because your dad scared the shit out of me. And I was just like, oh my God, Mr. Dearna, I'm still afraid of you.
Yeah.
That way about him that like just strikes fear in the heart. But I guess I was in high school chubby, you know. The odd thing is I weigh exactly the same now as I did in high school.
Yes.
Just like body composition is very different, obviously, you know?
Yes.
I was like a teenager going through puberty.
So how did you get into fitness?
Older. So after having the kids, after having Logan, I was, I'm like 5 foot nothing. So 200 pounds on a 5 foot frame is rough news.
Yep.
Not just physically rough, but just looks intense. You know, I was as wide as I was tall. I was miserable, hated myself. I couldn't stand to look in a mirror. I didn't have anything that like showed below my neck. And even then, like I didn't even want to look at my fat, bloated face. Like that's what I thought every time I looked at myself in the mirror was like, look at this gross thing looking back at me. Like anything to block the 3 chins that I had. My dad would say, you have more chins than a Chinese phone book. I don't know if that's PC to say anymore, but you know, that's how it went back in the day. You know, you just didn't care about that stuff. So I did. I had like 3 chins. And I had like enough one day. I was, I think 28 years old, 30 years old, and I'm like trying to walk up the stairs to my apartment and I'm out of breath. That is a damn problem. I just kind of was like, okay, I can't do this shit anymore. I was in a bit of a transition in my life. I was with my children's father for 11 years, but we were never married. People always ask like, same dad? And I'm like, yeah. So, you know, 3 kids. And I all of a sudden was thrust into being a single parent, and I moved back home to my mama's house. So that in itself was stressful. And then moving back into my parents' house was like the icing made of shit that was on the shit cake I was already shoveling into my gourd. So my mom has always been on some type of like a Weight Watchers style of eating. So when I moved back into the house, if anybody knows my mom, her name was Mean Jean.
She was mean.
That it was for a reason.
I remember not really going to your house often.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, but my mom she was just someone that demanded respect, and that was it. Like you were gonna follow her fucking rules or you were out on your ass, and that's it. End of story. And I'm very much that way too. I'm a little more liberal, but I'm just like, hey, these are the rules. You don't like them? You can kick rock. Like, okay, we're eating off of these plates and they're this big and you're not gonna bring garbage into my house, and that's it. And I was like, well, so that kind of started it. I just started eating the right portion, and slowly I was watching like the weight just kind of come off. And I wasn't really doing anything as far as like activity beyond walking around the neighborhood, because my mom was basically like, listen, you came here with your kids to get your life in order. That doesn't mean you're hanging out. I was like 28 years old with a curfew, crazy. But you know, when you're a Puerto Rican and you go back, like you don't disrespect your Puerto Rican mother. You could be 60 years old. I walked at night when my kids were sleeping. I ate my portions. So really, I just learned portion control, became more active. I was delivering food in Newburgh at a place, not just salads. It's in the plaza where Distinta is, the Distinta movie theater in New Windsor. So, well, it was like this little sandwich shop, and it said not just salad. So she started this like challenge, and that like kickstarted shit for me. Like I was like, oh, P90X. And so it went into like, you know, eating better, doing P90X, and then watching the weight come off even more the second that I added like some type of activity.
Challenge, something to keep you motivated.
It did. It challenged me a ton because I was never like an athlete in school, march around and like flip a rifle. You just have to not hit yourself in the face with it.
You got to know the count though.
Exactly. You do have to know the count. Yo, marching is you got to get that down. And if you're an exhibition drill, forget it. You know? So I was all over that. I was marching up a storm. But, you know, I was never like into sports or anything. I was never an athlete until I became an adult and I realized I could be an athlete even though I'm an old ass lady. And I will run circles around half these youngins here. A bigger work ethic than most of them, so.
So can you tell us a little bit about the POM method and the portion control?
How dieting is gonna destroy your metabolism and it's terrible. And it's like, you're right. I don't diet. I just eat. That's it. I listen to my body and I let it tell me what makes it feel good and what doesn't. And if I put something in my mouth that doesn't make my body feel good, I don't eat it. It's that simple. You know, everybody wants like a magic thing. And it's like, how about just control yourself? And that's what the POM method teaches you. That's as simple as I can put it, is it teaches you self-control, which is something that like in general, as a society, we are freaking lacking. And especially when it comes to the things that we put into our body. And so we're just like, oh, well, I can afford to buy this whole $30 cheesecake. But can you afford to eat that whole $30 cheesecake? Okay, no, you cannot. For a number of reasons, you can. You know, let's not even get into what it's going to do for your bathroom sessions, for Pete's sake. So, you know, I love poop conversations, so don't even get me started. The way to just very simply get the right amounts of everything that you need. The right amount of protein, the right amount of fats, the right amount of good carbohydrates, all the vegetables you could possibly desire. By using your hands, like scooping. My grandmother was scooping food into our plate with her hands for as long as I can remember. Pretty sure that's how the cat hair got transferred in, but whatever, you know? Like a little extra flavor. She said, who cares? You just pick it out. That's it. You know, hand method. My grandmother was using the hand method before it became a thing to do. I feel like it's the easiest way for people to get on track without feeling overwhelmed with having to count calories or restrict yourself.
How is it different than counting macros and calories?
So it's very different. It uses a rough idea based on the activity that you perform. Counting macros, you are being very specific, weighing, measuring things out. You're sticking to an exact calorie count. You're not going above that. Who fucking wants to do that shit? I don't want to do that crap. I want to eat.
I don't want to be a Nazi about my food and controlled and have to weigh it out and like that to me sounds...
It's overwhelming.
Yes, overwhelming. And I would say in the beginning of my weight loss journey, I definitely did have to, and a lot of my viewers know I've been a yo-yoer my entire life. This is my like new thing. I'm just been on the fad diets. I've tried things. I've weighed out to have bariatric surgery too to help. And then watching myself gain it all back afterwards. To then realize, okay, it's not about, if that was a tool, that was a helpful solution to the problem at that moment. But if I didn't change the way I was eating and learn the correct way of eating, I was just going to go back to being 300 pounds again. And I wasn't, that was not an option for me either. And so the POM method, which I didn't even know was the method, was what I was doing, you know, like a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of vegetables. I eat carbs, but I also kind of like carb cycle just because I know when I'm working out and how much I might need, and I listen to my intuitive body telling me, okay, you're hungry. And we all go off, right? We might have some Oreos.
I love to embrace my inner fat girl once in a while. You have to. I'm not denying her some of the things that she wants. That bitch wants a cake sometimes. She's not getting a cake. I laid in bed. I let the crumbs drip on my chest. It was a moment. Okay? Fell asleep with the spoon. Woke up with it stuck to my fucking torso. But like I ate, like I enjoyed that thing.
Yes.
I don't feel guilty that I ate it. My fat girl thanked me, and then she went back to where she belongs. You know, it's not about taking shit away. It's not about restricting things. It's about realizing that you can have that stuff, but it needs to be in moderation, because if you're eating it every day, it's not a treat. So let's get real, okay? And it's also about listening.
What if the fat witch wants chicken and noodles with mashed potatoes, you know, comfort foods?
Okay. So what's wrong with having some of that stuff sometimes?
You just
How about then you just have the portion?
So you wanna have the chicken, and if you wanna have a little bit of noodles, are you eating the noodles and the mashed potatoes at the same meal or separate?
I was gonna say that is some serious carb loading.
You guys have seen some of the pictures that I've posted recently.
Yeah.
If you go down, I had mashed potatoes, I had my chicken, filled my plate mostly with my green vegetables.
Yeah.
So I will eat my green vegetables, then my protein, and then the carb. And then when my stomach tells me I'm done, I've eaten a little bit of it and I'm done, and I put it in the refrigerator and eat it on a leftover.
Yeah. And that's the bit, honestly, like right there, that was, people are like, oh, intuitive eating, that sounds so complicated. No, it doesn't. It's called listening to your intuition. We do that, hopefully, in our everyday lives, like when we're making normal choices. Like maybe I shouldn't cross this street while there's a ton of fucking traffic. That's called intuition and common sense. You know, so it's like that was you listening to how your body functions.
And it's what taking that time to slow down and to be in the moment. I mean, a lot of us are, I didn't get to be 300 pounds because I was listening to my body and what it needed. I got there because I was just eating my emotions raw and just going for whatever was in front of me and being like, that makes me feel good and I'm going to put that in my body. So it's starting to listen to yourself a little bit more. And when we say intuitive thinking, it's like, or eating, it's being more conscious when you're eating about what that plate looks like, taking a moment to look at it, like enjoying it.
We were saying that this morning.
Like,
I was like moaning it on the phone. I'm like eating my breakfast and I'm like, oh my God, Dana, this is so good. I said it has only been in the last couple of years that like I've legitimately, like I have a relationship with my food. I enjoy it. My boys were making fun of me the other day because like I bit into this burger that Zach made. And first of all, get you a husband that could cook. I spent all my time cooking for everyone, and that also stressed me out about food. And now I'm like, I have this person that just cooks for me at night. It's nice, you know, because I was the one doing it all. He made like steak bulgogi with like all these mixed greens. It was amazing. It was so delicious.
And it's like it's definitely a Tina way of doing things. I like to cook my food and then whatever's left over, I put it into a recipe.
Yep, a hullabaloo. That's what my aunt would say, into a hullabaloo. Or into a sambumbia. That's what she would say. She would make like a sambumbia of all the stuff, all the good stuff from the week, all the meat, all the veggies, and make like a goulash or whatever, a goulash, maybe that's what you call it. But it's about like, I actually taste food now. To eat that food and I let it is an emotional experience.
Tickle your taste buds.
Yes, I'm tasting my food for the first time in years. And it's just because I'm taking the time to eat. I'm not shoveling it into my mouth, rushing, screwing up my digestion. I'm just taking my time.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it.
I was mentoring a young woman recently who was losing weight and wanted to know how to maintain it, and so I was working with her, but she had some crazy stinking thinking about it in terms of calorie counting. So she would be like, is pepperoni a good snack? You know, it's low on carbs, it's high on protein, can have my fried chicken later today. And it was this constant battle that she was having with herself, where she was limiting how much she could really eat because she wanted to have all this other food as well. But she was so stuck in having these particular foods
Items,
throughout the day, and struggling with the fact that, you know, if you wanted to have one of these, that's okay to have something like that.
Yeah.
But you got to balance it out, and you got to have green leafy vegetables are like my best friend, and I grow them wild in my garden. Like, that's mostly what I have in my garden. I make sure I'm growing kale, peas, green beans, and what else do I got going? Zucchini. Those are my main go-to with lettuce.
Yeah, and because they're going to be the most nutrient dense. The greener the vegetable, the more nutrient dense it is.
Yes.
Because then you've got things that also just have like a water content. Your cucumbers, your peppers, stuff like that, while the peppers have good nutrients in them, they are full of water, and that is something that also comes into play with like hydrating properly.
Yes.
You don't always have to drink a ton, but you want to have things that are loaded with water as well.
Yeah. I take my zucchini juice when I'm squeezing out my zucchini for like making zucchini fritters or whatever. I squeeze out the zucchini juice. It kind of tastes a lot like cucumber juice. You put it in some water with some mint and lemon.
Yes, seriously, for real. For real, like that's been my jam, is a mason jar full of cucumbers and mint. I actually, this morning, I did mint and blueberries. So that's sitting in my fridge right now, just like getting all frosty and cold, and I cannot wait to drink that later. Something that's also important too is maintaining your hydration. A lot of times people mistake thirst for hunger. And they're like, oh, I'm hungry. And it's like, how about you drink something? They feel the same.
Or if you're hungry, go drink
something.
A glass of water.
Point is to get away from dieting because they don't work. I said it to Tina, the only time that I diet is when I'm going towards like if I have a meet, because I compete in powerlifting and I compete in a weight class. So the only time that I diet is if I need to drop a little bit of weight to fit into my weight class. And even then, I'm not doing a ton of dieting. I'm just manipulating my food. Carb cycling, that's what you said. I'm putting things where they belong. If I'm lifting weights Monday, Wednesday, Friday, my carbs are gonna be higher on those days because I need them. And on the days that I'm doing yoga and I'm skipping around the neighborhood, I'm not gonna have as many carbs, because I don't need them. And what that's gonna do is force my body to burn up stored energy in the form of fat. That's what you want. So it's like, it's not about all the complicated stuff. Tina's gonna teach you how to eat like a normal fucking person so that you can enjoy food and life and not be stressed out about it. It's not about shoveling 700 containers into your fridge. I mean, maybe that method works for people in like prepping, being able, as far as like, time-wise, knowing that like all you got to do is pull these containers out of the fridge. That's fine. Like when I've got to leave the house, I do have a couple containers if I know I'm going to be out for the day. So, so I'm not eating things that I don't want to eat. That's just for me. That works for me. I also have kind of a sensitive belly, and a lot of that stuff kind of messes with my gut. So I don't even bother with it.
Can you actually tell us what micronutrients are?
That's basically going to be your fats, your carbs, and your proteins, and of course fiber. But when people are looking at macros, if you were to Google what are macros, it would come up fats, proteins, carbohydrates. So it's really just having a balance of those 4 things. When I'm in the gym, people are like, oh, you want to focus on the 3 main lifts. And it's like, actually, there's 4. That's your squat, your bench, your deadlift, and your overhead press. So I feel the same way about macros. That's your fats, your proteins, your carbs, and your leafy greens. Is like an offset of carbohydrates, because fruits, you're going to get sugars and they're going to turn into, those are your carbs, right? And you just want to make sure you're having a healthy amount of fats, carbohydrates, and protein. Simplest way to make sure you're getting good sources of that is to not buy a bunch of shit in boxes. Like I always tell people, shop on the outside of the outside perimeter of the grocery store, because that's where all the fresh stuff is. That's where all the stuff that's going to spoil in a couple days is, and that's what you want. We complicated things.
There's like the outer ring, and it's such a small part of the store, and then everything is metal, and it's like, sheesh. For the people here who know me, I love cheese and crackers. That is a snack. I just I limit that, but I don't have a ton of stuff. I keep some things in my cabinets.
Yeah.
I also go through moments where that's it. I'm going to clean everything out,
Yep.
donate or toss some stuff, you know, like preparing yourself for a competition and going on a diet, so to speak, or changing up cycle for the, I mean, I am not perfect and I kind of know my body, but like in the winter time, sometimes I kind of store, I am not as crazy active, and then usually around, and you know, the whole seasonal depression thing kind of kicks in, like getting out of work and it being dark, or it getting dark at 5 o'clock is for me. So I always around January end up being like, okay, it's time to kick back into high gear. I need to start working out more. I'm gonna, you know, limit my carb intake, and I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. The hardest thing about that is actually sticking to it and committing. Like, commitment is the biggest issue in all that we do. It takes us at least 27 times to do something the right way to make it into a pattern,
a habit,
store it to memory, and a habit. So if you're constantly doing something and then a week out you quit it, you have to start all over again.
How many times do you want to have another Monday? Why do you want to restart every damn Monday? You know, it's hard. The first week is hard. It is. But like, life is not easy. If it were, everybody would be walking around with perfect, you know, their idea of a perfect body, of a perfect life. You know, we wouldn't be going through the societal things that we are, but that's not the fucking reality, okay? That isn't. And this is the thing where, you know, you just said in the winter you put on weight. That's fine. So do I. You want to know why? Because when it comes down to basics, we're animals. We're animals. We just happen to be slightly more intelligent sometimes, you know, than like our dog. But for all intents and purposes, we're fucking animals, and our bodies want to do things in a cycle. As mammals, if we bring it back to the basics of us when we were wiping our asses with leaves and living in huts, okay? Like, our bodies worked in a cycle. In the winter, it naturally put weight on. We stored more fat because they were living in huts. You'd think they had central air and heating? No, they were heating their huts by a fire or nothing at all. So like, our bodies had to adapt. Those processes don't change just because we became an advanced society. Like, that's still very basic animal things that our body does. That's one of them. So there's nothing wrong with I love the winter. Not because it's cold, because I hate the cold.
I love the winter because I get to play ice hockey.
Yeah, and I think like this is like, I get to put on that extra little bit of weight. I want to put on that extra bit of weight because for me, that's a growth season. That's a season of growth. To me, that's where I'm gonna put my muscle mass on. That's where I'm gonna let myself get that fluff because I'm in a building stage. And then in the summer, in the spring, your body naturally wants to lean out. It naturally wants to head in that direction. You just give it the tools to do it. We should be eating on a cycle. We should be. That is it. A cycle that like our bodies know on its own. It's not about making it so complicated. Just listen to yourself. Listening. Actually taking the time to listen to what your body wants and what it doesn't.
For the person who's really struggling with being able to listen to their body, or emotionally eating, or wanting all that comfort food, there's something much more deeper than nutrients and everything else. That comes down to possible trauma, some issues that you have from childhood that you're not getting rid of in terms of food. There's an attachment and an emotional part of this. Makes this space really great because I happen to be a licensed social worker and work with people on that, and I bring in experts to talk a lot about that.